want to make sure we hit something, because maybe someone's out there and they're looking at your newsletter, or they're like staring now. They're like, oh shoot, let me go look, and they're going like, oh, I don't know if I'm actually well set up here. I don't know if I'm doing well. And so, is there anything you mentioned moving the date? We talked about that a lot. But what else would you recommend for a game that's going towards a release that they've kind of got planned, and they're realizing, okay, the signals aren't strong. What can I do right now?
I honestly think like just analyzing the channel stuff we say. Like the biggest thing we kind of tell our partners to focus in on, both big and small, is like they get so hung up on volume metrics. Like we think like looking at the relative channel metric, like relative rank across channels, is equally or if not more important to thinking about like how we are defining our own success. So like literally I would start to kind of like we'd benchmark and be like, okay, where do you need to be to hit a certain mindshare score based on this period of time, and like analyze the channel level stuff so they can go be a little bit more tactical with like how they execute on that, right? So do we need to do more engagement and strategy and kind of thinking about how we reach to the Twitch community? I think we've talked about that a lot, but maybe like kind of pivoting again, like, or maybe it's something like on YouTube. Like, so I really just think about like understanding the kind of game you're in and what the kind of channel strategy should be, and like, and then kind of strategizing how to like maximize attention on those channels, right? To drive up like your ultimate like TAM and see a as positive outcome as you can be. So I think whether, and that it doesn't have to be like creating a crazy trailer, although it can be like sometimes you're like, yeah, the trailer didn't work, go cut another one. If you're a big company, right? We've told them before, like you look at our data, we were update weekly.
Go.
You put an asset out there, it's flat, probably didn't work. Get back to the editing bay, and
Try again.
Try again, and see what would move it the next forward. So just don't be hung up on like we put out a reveal trailer, like and it didn't work. I'm like, okay, then cut another one.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Try again and see if the next one with better assets or different assets, let's say, not better. Sorry, better assets can yield a different outcome, right? Or focusing on a different aspect of the game, or showing people something other than a cinematic trailer. Maybe they just want to see gameplay, so put in something that's more gameplay dependent out there. Would be a strategy too, right? So, and then going back and check, did it work? I think like what I would say is kind of, if I themize what I'm trying to get across, is like be willing to experiment across the spectrum, whether that's moving your release date or just changing what you're doing and having openness to saying, yep, well, that didn't work, and then going back to the well and tweaking and changing it again and again and again.
If I meta out and kind of abstract from that,
please.
There's this idea in a lot of what you're saying, which is you have to create a marketing plan that is flexible, because you actually don't know what's going to be going on when you roll in. You don't know which assets are going to work and aren't. Again, unless if you're a Nintendo or a Rockstar and you can kind of just get away with like putting GTA 6 as a logo out into the world and that's it. Like that works. For most people in most circumstances, having flexibility in that plan, not just around release date, but in terms of like, okay, that asset didn't work. Do we have others that we can quickly spin up to try? And also to be watching and going like, look, nothing's working. Like maybe this needs to go back in the oven for a bit, or like maybe there's something else we need to try to do. Like, because you're going to run into all these situations if you're out there. So anyway, that's sort of that meta idea that's coming through in a lot of what you're saying, is you have to be flexible because you cannot control the environment.
100%. And like a willingness to share more, share often, I don't think is a thing that I think about a lot, right? So going back to, you found your core community of 10,000 people that are part of your Discord server. Share what you're doing. Like I think communicating as often as you can with your core audience is always a good idea, because then especially if you listen to them. If you don't listen to them, then challenges, right? But listen to them, hear what they have to say, because if they're their core, what they really want to do, and we saw this at Twitch all the time, like with the communities and the streamers, they want to see them be successful. That's what they want more than anything. Like it's like a sports team. It's a partial, like I feel psychologically I am on the journey with the person or the thing I'm supporting, and as such I'm going to give them the feedback I think will drive success. And then you look at it in an aggregate, like then you can make changes, maximize things, and kind of put it out there again and again and again, right? So I think like listening to community, and I kind of go full circle, but I think building a community and build like a a solid rock or foundation to putting together what ultimately a gaming release strategy is critical, right? You have to be out early, build the community, find your core, build on the core, and then ultimately listen to the core as you kind of put things in out there in market. And if it doesn't work, then kind of going back and say, well, what's not working that worked for these people, right? But having an openness to experiment. Back to what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I for some reason I want to talk about two shooter
Oh
titles.
please.
So that these were ones that I wanted. I want to succeed in one's case, and I wanted to succeed in others, and it did not. And I thought it was interesting because you talked about Twitch, and I think that Spectre Divide um, was they actually tried to get the Twitch attention, right? They had like Shroud as somebody, an investor in the company, somewhat involved in the game development, all these different things. And it seemed like okay, cool, you must be really set up. I think they thought they found like a ticket to this is gonna get us traction and whatnot, and that I mean it did okay, but as a free play live service, it was just like from the very beginning, it was not trending well. I don't know if you ever did any like looking into that.
I am gonna take this as an opportunity to talk about. I know vaguely what it is, but it follows the trend of so much other stuff I see. So let me kind of take it and go with like, especially with shooters, like not unique, but like kind of like what I would say about any genre, let's say shooters, is like one, they often run in like micro oligopolies. What does that mean? I think every shooter and subgenre of a shooter or whatever you want to call it, right, has room for 1 to like 3 entrants per genre, right? So when Marvel Rivals found success, it was part because there weren't a lot of hero shooters. It was Overwatch,
kind of TF2, and that's it.
Yeah, very limited. Open. Like it was an all red ocean at that point, right? There was blue ocean to be had, and so it was a matter of, was your game going to be the thing that fits next to Overwatch 2? Now if I were to look at the hero shooter genre now, and we've done this with like a graph looking at hero shooters that are coming out or are out. Let's poke at Fragpunk, Nettie's other kind of experiment, which I would say didn't go as well as Marvel Rivals. Like, you have to do so much more different, knowing that you're now going to have to pull people away from either Overwatch 2 or Marvel Rivals, knowing that there's twice the competition, twice as much, effects. I was talking earlier, like going back to my switching cost, skill, money, friends. Like, those things are very hard and strong gravitational pulls to fight against. So you're the next one coming up, like, it's going to be a lot harder. So I think really look at the ecosystem and the landscape and saying, are we doing something different, or are we going to be able to win against these things? Or should we think of another thing to ultimately do and be a little bit more creative instead of carbon copy, right?
And Spectre Divide, from what you're just saying, you're running into Counter-Strike, you're running into Rainbow Six Siege, you're running into Valorant in the tactical shooter space. Those are big, heavy-hitting contenders with established audiences that are like filling that tactical. And it's interesting because you said like some number of these per subgenre. I think about MOBAs. I think they're not shooters, but like League and Dota, right? Like that's what's out there.
I can go across so many genres. MMORPGs. You have Final Fantasy, you have RuneScape, you have WoW. Boom, that's your MMORPG market, right? You can go on. And once you start analyzing the markets and realizing what are the 2 to 3 games that kind of predominantly own the share of time and attention, it's much harder to like basically break through. And mobile is literally the same thing. Like certain like match 3 games, there's only so many of those that can exist within that market, and then it basically becomes the long tail thereafter. And you can, and to be completely transparent, like you could still succeed in those markets if your aspirations and your budget and everything else, like if you were a team of 10 people making a fun shooter and you only had to find 20 to 30,000 people that'd be passionate about your thing, then you for sure can exist in an equilibrium where there's these massive AAA games trying to pull all the attention and demand, and they exist in oligopoly. But what ultimately happens is that's not what's famously failing. It's these massive studios also thinking like, well, if Riot and EA can do it, we can do it too. And they're like, if you're assuming that a lot of things to be true in order to find success there. And I think that's the challenge. I think that the industry is kind of, I think they've realized it and they're just kind of moving away from it. And I applaud, it sucks, but I applaud companies that walk away from releasing and going all in on a live service experience if they don't think it's going to work, instead of like railing them. I'd be like, at least they decided to do it now before they doubled the budget with marketing, right? They walked away from this live service thing. I hope they use the assets on something else. As a fan of Spider-Man and Insomniac Games, I would say I'm so happy they didn't come out with live service Spider-Man. I'm sorry that live service Spider-Man was leaked on the internet through hacking. Sucks, but it was. But to Sony's credit, they said, you know what? No, at some point during the development, and it looked like it was going to be a Spider-Verse style like live service game. And I hope to see those assets appear in a future Spider-Man and or Insomniac Marvel title down the line. And those people on that team went to work on whatever they're doing next at that studio, right? So that's what I'm like hopeful, and like good that you didn't go further down the kind of rabbit hole of trying to do something that probably wouldn't have worked out in the long run.
Does this sound familiar? You're in a leadership role at a game studio. Everyone is busy working. No one has any time. But the actual game itself, isn't in a good spot. Maybe it's the tech. Maybe it's the lack of a validated prototype. Maybe it's that every person seems to have a different idea about what we're trying to build. But you've got a job. There are reports to send, meetings to schedule and facilitate, the occasional season of performance reviews to go through. And everyone is always so busy. When you step back, it makes you wonder if everyone is just going to keep slowly walking towards the abyss until the project or game fails. Is this what it means to be a leader in games? In tech? To endlessly repeat the same sequence of meetings without really moving the needle? To spend hours trying to get Jira tickets and dashboards where they should be? To pretend that everything is fine when you know deep down it really isn't? It doesn't have to be this way. You can make a difference. You can help your team and game succeed, but sometimes you need a bit of help to get there. I've started a game dev leadership accelerator. It aims to level up leaders who see opportunities to make a difference but don't know how to capitalize on them. We'll walk through what it means to lead well and give you tools to understand your organization's challenges and implement changes to overcome them. Game dev is hard. Knowing how to lead will give you an edge. It will still be hard, but you'll be ready to tackle it. If you're interested, let me know below, hit the link. I hope to see you in the accelerator because I believe better leaders will help teams make better games, and I look forward to someday playing what you create.